Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I have a birthday card to share with you using some new products from Hello Bluebird that I got. Today I am featuring the Life is But a Dream stamp set, which is truly adorable. And I decided to stamp out one of the bigger images and then tons of stars and a moon to create some sort of a night sky kind of card. Now first let's start with the coloring. So I'm using my Copics. I use my favorite things Extreme Black ink, which is the first time that I'm using it, and I must admit that I really like it. It's extreme black. It also is Copic friendly. Lately I have had some smearing sometimes when I'm using the Gina K Designs Amalgam ink. I don't know how it happens because in the beginning I didn't have it, and so I decided to try this ink out as well. I will not get rid of the Gina K Designs Amalgam ink because I truly adore it, and well, I always have been really happy about that ink. But I know that this one is out there and a lot of you can get it, so maybe if you are having difficulties getting the other ink, then this might be a great alternative. I also didn't experience any bleeding from this ink. I made sure to heat it, however, to be sure. Better to be safe than sorry. And then I started coloring with my Copic markers. Now, as always, you can find a color combination listed on my blog post so that you can easily find everything back whenever you need to. There is always that reference for you guys, so that can be handy. Now the paper that I'm using is Transotype Perfect Coloring Paper, in case you want to know how to write it, because I might pronounce it differently than you. Also, that is on my blog post as well as in the description box down below. I just have a supply list there as well. So I really love this ink. I decided for today's card to use several colors or color combinations of browns. I wanted to give you as much as possible, get you some ideas going. Again, I'm using a lot of my favorite Copics brown ones like E33. It's truly my go-to, and I can create tons of combinations with only that marker. Actually, I really love it, and I think there is almost, well, every combination of browns that I use has this E33 almost in it, so really great marker. And I can only emphasize that, for example, here with my browns, how I use that E33 all the time. It's just also really handy to see whenever you're buying Copics that you check which ones you already have and which ones can just be in addition to the combinations you already have. That's truly a bonus about Copics. I know they are quite expensive, but I love coloring with them, and I don't think you need all of the markers. You just need those key markers, and in my opinion, if you ask me, the E33 is a key marker for the brown combinations. It's just marvelous. I use it all the time. You will also see that if you check on the combinations that I use for cards, that if there are multiple brown combinations, I think E33 is almost in each one of them. So really handy. Okay, so here again, I'm just using a few other browns than I already used, but I'm reusing E57 here and E33. So truly it comes back all the time. For the boat, I actually had no clue what I was going to do, so I will zoom out here, take my my chart that I have, and just look with you to get an idea of which markers that I'm going to use. Now, something that I did know for this card was that I wanted to some sort of have a night sky kind of card, and in the past I already did this. I took a really dark blue piece of paper, cardstock, and I'm going to use some white pigment ink on top to get my sky blended. Now I love to use this yellow-green combination. It's a bit of an olive kind of green, and I first thought of using that, but then I took that paper to see where I was going, and I wasn't sure about the green. It will definitely work if you want to, but well, here I was more convinced about the purple colors, the BV or the V family from Copics. So I decided that I wanted to use BV01, and then I ended up matching it with V28 and V25. I don't think I used it in the past, but a chart like this can really help. This one is from Sandy Elnock. I purchased it. I printed it on Nina in this case because at the time that was the paper that I was using. I should actually print it again on Transotype to have really the colors that I can only also use while coloring, but it works on the Nina. And you just print it on that. There are other charts out there. There are free ones. There are also just charts to see which ones you already have and keep a bit up with all of the markers. Anything goes, but I truly find this one really helpful. I think it's worth the money. Just because it also gives you some kind of an idea which markers go well together and which don't, and I think that's wonderfully done by Sandy Elnock. She's incredible also. If you're looking for coloring videos, she is like the master. So here I started on that purple kind of boat. And as with the critters, I am adding the shadows on the left side. I also made sure to stamp the stars like in all directions so that I would have the shadows on several areas depending on how I was going to use it on my card. It could have been really handy. And then here I'm just making sure to add shadows on the left side, and there where there is an overlap with another image, I'm also trying to get a shadow going on. So my first layer, I truly wasn't convinced, I must admit that, but most of the time I need 2 layers, and I truly adored it once I had a second layer on top of it. I also really love this stem set. When I saw the inspiration by the design team when it was released, well, preview, so a few days before the release, I first wasn't sure about it because I tried to avoid all things under the sea. I have a few stems that go under the sea, and this one is with the boat and also fish and stuff, so I wasn't completely convinced. But then design team, they made some incredible cards, and I also thought immediately about more masculine cards would be really easy with this stem set and still adorable. So for this birthday card that I'm creating here, I think you can give it to any gender. I also contemplated here to sort of color the water from the stamp, but I ended up not doing that. I'm going to use some white heat embossing for the sentiment, and then the clouds are white here. I'm leaving the bottom just how it is, so that I have some sort of really dark lake kind of feeling, and then all of a sudden the clouds are there and it just builds up. But with all of the white on top of the blue, I was like, it's just jumping as well from this cardstock, leaving those waves white, but you can add any color that you want. So here I just shifted my stencil. It's the cloudy stencil from Fawn that I'm using for this sky. I'm just making sure that I have it ink blended well, and I'm using this white pigment ink from Hero Arts. It's the unicorn. And then I decided to add some white splatters because that's a lot of fun, and they represent stars or snow depending on which theme you're going for. But in my case, it's really night sky stars, and I'm also going to add those yellow stars as well. So you might have seen this, but this panel is slightly larger than an A2 size. It's also a bit thinner, but that was the idea. I was contemplating about adding a color or gold cardstock or glitter cardstock on that sliver, but I ended up not doing that to just emphasize that white a bit more. So I'm leaving that as is, but I didn't know yet how high up I wanted those clouds to start. So once I decided upon that, I could trim off the excess, and then I could really start assembling everything. So for the sentiment, as I said, I'm going to white heat emboss the sentiment. I'm using this Scripty Bday from Mama Elephant. It has been a while since I used this one, but it's really an all-round sentiment stamp set if you need some birthday sentiments. So once I had decided where I wanted that, I just prepped the cardstock. I white heat embossed this sentiment using the Ranger Embossing Powder white. It's a super fine detail, which is really handy depending on the script or the thickness or thinness from your sentiment. It is really handy to have a super fine detail, because otherwise you might just ruin your sentiment. In this case, the script is quite thick, so I wasn't really worried about that, but I also don't have a lot of embossing powders, so this one is truly my go-to whenever I need white embossing powder. So I just prepped the cardstock, and then I'm making sure that I have my panel secured. So I'm just using an extra magnet here, and I'm stamping it out with Versamark clear embossing ink. This ink is really sticky and it stays wet with a bit longer than, well, a while longer than regular ink. So you have some time to put that embossing powder on, tap it off, and then heat set that. So once it is heat set and I let it dry a bit, because if you go too soon you might smear it, but if you set it back for a while you can buff off the excess anti-static powder that you still have on it, and then it really pops. Now let's assemble everything. For these amazing images I'm using my thin foam squares to get some dimension going on, and then I will place all of the stars and moon that I want to use on the background and adhere it with some liquid glue as well. I'm just covering as much as possible here from this image, and then I can remove the backings and add it sort of centered on the bottom half of this panel. There we go. And then I just used several stars in that moon. I created a few stars more, but I don't like returning to another phase of the creating process. So I prefer having too many stars than not enough and having to color more. So I just wiggled a bit around with all of the stars that I had colored in. And once I was happy with placement, I added them using some liquid glue. Now, if you don't want to color all of these stars, or you have some incredible embellishments, you can definitely replace these stars by some star embellishments or bubbles or iridescent stuff. Anything is possible actually, but I already colored them and I took the time to die cut them as well, so just adding as much as possible to fill up my background without adding too much. And then I will add that moon with some thin foam squares to add a bit more dimension. And then I'm going to adhere this panel straight on top of a card base. Now, as I said, I will have that sliver wide, and I wanted a bit of dimension while adhering this panel to that card base. So I took some foam sheets that I created myself based on some explications by Carissa Whiteley. She is incredible. I love her style. And she actually shared a video where she is just adding Scor tape on top of some foam paper, some foam sheets, and that way she creates a budget-friendly double-sided foam adhesive. And so I tried it out and it's really handy, and so I wanted to use it today. Now that's really sticky, so I made sure to use my Misty to get it aligned perfectly on my card base. Therefore, you put your card base in a specific corner and you use the edges of your Misty to help you guide that panel on top of your card base. That's a trick that might help you as well. It truly helped me today to create this card and adhere everything on top of each other. So this is my end result. Really simple, but with a lot of impact, I think. Ready to go for any birthday, any gender, I find. So I hope that could inspire you today, that anything was useful from my video. I hope that you enjoyed it. I want to wish you all an incredible day. Thank you so much, and I'll be back soon with some new crafty inspiration. Bye!